Discourses. So what's happened, unfortunately, is yeah, is your internet back and working, Nomita?
Jai Baba, yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we heard garbled audio from your side. Anyway, so I was just opening the call by saying that I have bad news to start, in the sense that the last 2 weekends, for some reason, the recordings have not been done accurately. The weekend in Singapore, when I was in Singapore, I did not record at all, so zero. The weekend before that, which has not happened in a long time. It used to happen in 2020, but it's happened again. So I don't know what Baba wants to tell me, or maybe it was the new
He's
place
telling,
and the setting.
he's telling you internalize these messages. Don't think about recording.
Yes, boss. Yes, boss. What is the use of recording? Is what is Baba's message. So the other day when I was on the road, again there's been a partial recording, which is no good, in the sense that it's not going to help continue. I mean, anybody will not have a full coverage of what's has to be read. So I think we'll reread. It's just 2 3 chapters, and go through the whole process again. So that's my proposal, right? Before
Yes.
that, we'll start with the couplets. Which of you gorgeous women want to read the couplets? Given you're on time and you're early and you're on the call live, Nehaji, why don't you read?
Jai Baba,
Thank you. Go ahead.
three of Meher Baba's favorite couplets of Hafiz. It's Hafiz, a mystical Persian poet, befitting a fortunate slaves, carry out every command of the master without any question or of why and what. About what you hear from the master, never say it's wrong, because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. Third one is, I am the slave of the master who has released, released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Jai Meher Baba. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you so much. So, I think the subtlety that you brought out is important. I recently realized that the way to pronounce the name is Hafiz, and it's actually, isn't it a title? It's like a honorific title, right? It's not just a
जैसे खुदा
name.
हाफिज बोलते हैं ना, खुदा हाफिज बोलते हैं ना.
Ah, I
So this is
see.
हाफिज,
Hafiz.
रक्षा करने वाला. अल्लाह आपकी रक्षा करे, तो that is खुदा हाफिज.
Okay, okay. So,
So
रक्षा करने वाले को दिया जाने वाला टाइटल है ये.
yes, so अल्लाह हाफिज बोलते हैं हम लोग, अल्लाह हाफिज या खुदा हाफिज.
खुदा हाफिज. Correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hafiz is also used for somebody who has memorized Quran. What is
Yes,
that
correct.
word?
Yes, I think that's what
Yes,
it is. Yes, that's
Yes,
what.
Quran
that's
है,
also correct.
हाफिज हाँ, yes, you're right, you're
Yes,
right.
Yes,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
It's not. It's a more than a honorific title. It's a qualification, right? So you have to
Yes,
know
yes.
it by heart to get the title. So I don't know what's the original or the most famous Hafiz, because when Baba says Hafiz, who's he referring to? I don't know.
No, he's a famous Sufi saint and a guru of Tabrizi.
Yes.
So yeah, he has. There are many. If you Google him, you will get lots of information about Hafiz. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's quite famous. Yeah.
It's also used as a name probably. So
No, that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. What
yeah,
is the
yeah.
actual Islamic name? But it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah.
So,
I,
for those of you who just joined, I was just saying that in our journey of the fourth session of discourses, because we've had one, it went up online. We've had two in between the last 2 weekends. And in that journey, the recordings and the order of reading is all got messed up. So the first time, the second time, that is last weekend when I was in Singapore, I completely messed up. My fault. I did not record. In fact, strangely, at the end of the call, I usually switch off recording. Right, that's when I've started. So I I have like 2 hours of all our unimportant discussions on record, and the main part of the reading is missing. It's not happened often, so sorry, Baba. Sorry,
Baba
everybody.
wants us to read again. Baba wants us to read again.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I think that's the message. So I agree, and with apologies to those who have completely internalized and mastered these chapters, for whom it will be a bit of a bore. We will read again.
Discourses will never
Yeah,
be
yeah.
a book.
Exactly, exactly. So there's always something that I take away each time I read, listen, or even go on a video, a discourses linked video. By the way, thanks Shiva for sharing those audios. I wanted to show you something today. So that's actually Don Stevens' voice. And second, it is not the Trust website. It's called Trust Meher, but it's not the Trust website. Yeah, the Trust website is AMBPC, whatever, PCT.com.
PCT, PCT.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, yeah. It's just the acronym. Trust Meher is another site. So what I did when I found these audios is I've actually put them as attachments, right? So this is the Don Stevens audio right with the chapter. So those of you who don't want to see the video can actually go and listen to the audio file, and it's available on Trello. Unfortunately, Don didn't do a complete job. So he read about, I think, 10 or 12 of the chapters, 12 of the discourses, and that too from the volume one, and that's it. There's no other audio files available. But even then, I found
Wonderful.
his reading,
Wonderful.
yeah, I found his reading to be very nice because
Oh, lovely,
his
lovely.
very lovely reading, very heartful, and he hardly talks. Maybe in one or two of those audios, you will have a subtle message, a very brief, one line he may say in addition to what's there in discourses. For the position he held and the kind of importance he held in the editing of these books, he's so careful not to indulge in commentary or discussion while reading the book, which I took away as a special thing I noticed. Right, so that's just informational. So wherever available, it will already be sitting in the card. Right. So today, what we'll do is we'll quickly reread the sections again, including the introduction. By the way, Kama or whoever was on the call 2 weeks back, was the introduction read at all? Because it's not on record. Okay, it doesn't matter. So we'll just read now. Okay, we'll just read again now for completion of recording, right? I was when I was thinking about this morning, I was reminded of something that irritates the hell out of me in India, and that is weddings, right? In weddings, the boss is the cameraman, right? Not the priest. What you'd expect is the priest is the boss, right? He tells you what to do. No, unfortunately, what it's relegated to now is the photographer, the videographer, they are the ones in control. So many times he will ask the bride and groom and whoever involved to repeat things, to do them better, as though it is his right. So in the same spirit, because we did not record, we are reading again. But in this, the good news is I'm sure that we'll learn something new. Right. So let's start with that. Maybe I will read the introduction in my heartfelt apology to everybody. Okay. Avatar Meher Baba.
Karthik,
please.
actually, this is sorry to.
Yeah, Shiva, go ahead.
I was genuinely desiring that I missed the first reading session And I was, even though some recordings would have been there, I was deeply desiring that I have a good start, a proper start of the Discourses book. In a way, Baba is blessing me with this rereading.
So your honeymoon absolutely continues, Shiva. Everything that you request or even have half a request, Baba is fulfilling. Here you go.
I have Sanjay to thank for that. Because of his heartfelt invite, I've started to become regular. Uh, thank
Very
you,
glad.
Baba. Thank you, Sanjay.
Very glad. Very
Jai
glad.
Baba. Please go ahead. Jai Baba.
Baba has called you, Shiva. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Yeah. So thank you, Sanjay ji. So the full name is Khwaja Shamsuddin Muhammad Hafiz A Shirazi. Shiraz is a place in Iran. So
Yes.
Hafiz A
Yes.
Shirazi is
Yeah.
the Hafiz
Yeah,
who
Hafiz
came
of
from Shirazi.
Shiravji.
Yeah, who came from
Yes,
Shirazi.
yes, yes.
And like
Yeah.
Neha ji already pointed out, I think Tabriz is the disciple, right? Shams A Tabriz, I think.
Shamshat
Some
Yes.
Tabriz, and Shamshat Tabriz was also in the same lineage as Rumi.
Rumi,
Yes.
correct,
Rumi
Rumi.
was his
correct,
Rumi.
correct, correct,
Shamsuddin Rumi. Yeah.
correct, correct. Great. So thanks for that input. Let's continue. I mean, let's start rather. One sec. Let me get this to zoom to a good level. Yeah. Yeah, so it's the introduction to the seventh edition. So just as context for people who do not know about it already, the discourses were a series of articles and messages combination sent and published in various Baba publications, largely the Awakener and the Meher Baba Journal, and this was done over a period of time, over a period of years, and then at one point it was consolidated as a book. The first edition has a particular sequence and content. Significant changes have not happened between the first to the seventh, but there is change in a lot of the chapters, largely editorial and meaning. I mean, they're trying to keep the word as close as possible to Baba's, but they've made improvements to make sure that absorption is better and obvious errors and typographical mistakes are eliminated. Right. So that's the context. Okay. Merwan Sheriar Irani was born in Pune, India on 25th February 1894. His parents, Sheriar and Shireen, were Zoroastrians of Persian descent. His father, Sheriar, was a genuine seeker of God. Merwan attended St. Vincent High School. He was a lively and happy boy who excelled in both studies and sports and was not overly interested in spirituality. However, a school friend once gave Merwan a booklet on the life of Buddha, and years later, when he reminisces about this incident, he remarked, I opened the book to the place that told about the second coming of the Buddha as Maitreya, the Lord of Mercy, and I realized all of a sudden, I am that actually, and I felt it deep within me. Then I totally forgot about it, and years passed by. One day in May 1913, while studying at Deccan College in Pune, he cycled past the venerable Muslim woman Hazrat Babajan, one of the five perfect masters of the time. She beckoned him to her and kissed him on the forehead, subsequently revealing to him his true state as the avatar, the total manifestation of God in human form. At first, Merwan was dazed, but gradually, over a period of months, the focus of his consciousness returned sufficiently to his surroundings to lead him to the perfect master, Sai Baba of Shirdi, who, in turn, guided him to another of the perfect masters, Upasni Maharaj, a Hindu in Sakori. Sai Baba did not disclose his religion. The two remaining perfect masters of the period were the Muslim Tajuddin Baba and the Hindu Narayan Maharaj. Yeah, Pune is has an asterisk. So Pune is basically officially spelled Pune now. Sassoon Hospital, in which Merwan was born, was maintained at the time by a well-known philanthropic Jewish family. And a bragging right of two people on this call. We actually tried knocking and getting to that room, but the bragging right was not complete because me and Sunil didn't get access to the ward. It's now moved. This particular there's a plaque. There's a plaque where Baba was born. There's a marble stone that's put up, and I believe it's in the new building now.
Create
And
their entire room. They
yes,
created the entire room for Baba,
correct.
and now one can go and visit there.
So it's in the new building, right? So when we went, it was
Yes.
yeah, it was just inaugurated. It was days into the inauguration. The inauguration, in
Uh-huh.
fact, where Ganesh and the trust members, I think Mehernath Kalchuri was there and so on. They had all come. I think
Yes.
in less than a week before that. We went after a
Okay.
week, and for whatever
Okay.
reason, because we were at 8 p.m. in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
they were reluctant to let us in. It also houses the ICU.
They
So
gave some timing from 10 to 6 or 10 to 5.
something like that.
Something like
Correct,
that.
correct. Yeah. So
Yeah, Karthik, we have been on the inauguration and it is accessible. Yes.
blessed souls
I
like you.
think
Yes.
you should attempt going there on 25th Feb. So
Yes.
you can meet up everybody and meet with the group. Yeah. There you go.
Also,
And-
25th, every 25th, there's something.
Yeah, there is something
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Nice,
absolutely.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice, very
and Pune Center can facilitate.
Yeah, a lot of people travel from Nagar also there for that function. Trust members and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, Ashokji. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so I'll continue. For 7 years, Upasni Maharaj integrated Merwan's God consciousness with consciousness of the gross world, establishing him in his role as the avatar of the age. This avataric mission started its outward expression in 1921 with the gathering together of his first disciples, who gave him the name Meher Baba, which means compassionate father. After months of intensive work with these disciples and travel in India, including present-day Pakistan and Iran, Meher Baba and his followers took up residence in 1923 in a vacant World War I military camp near Ahmednagar, India. This became known as Meherabad. Here, he instituted a number of projects, such as a free hospital and dispensary, shelters for the poor and the mad, and a free school for boys of all religions where spiritual training was stressed. In the school, no caste lines were observed, as the high and the low mingled in common fellowship forged by love of the master. To all, Meher Baba offered regular instruction in moral discipline, spiritual understanding, selfless service, and above all, love of God. I'll repeat that line. To all, Meher Baba offered regular instruction in moral discipline, spiritual understanding, selfless service, and above all, love of God. All these activities moved at high speed despite Meher Baba's silence, which he commenced with little advance warning on the 10th July of 1925. When asked previous to the start of his silence how he would continue to give discourses and teachings to his followers, he countered, "I come not to teach, but to awaken." In later years, during one of his visits to the West, his comments were equally profound and thought-provoking. Things that are real are given and received in silence. And again, if my silence cannot be heard, of what avail words? After also giving up writing in 1927, except for his signature, he communicated by pointing to letters on an alphabet board, but this too was given up in 1954. Subsequently, he conversed through his own unique system of hand gestures. However, his discourses and his book, God Speaks, were dictated before giving up the alphabet board. During the early 1930s, Meher Baba's travels began to reach into Europe and then on to America. Contacting hundreds on both continents, his name rapidly became known to those deeply and sincerely interested in the spiritual life. Only some of these were permitted to come later to India in small groups. Their visits ranged generally from weeks to years, but just before World War II, all but a handful were asked to return to the West. Meher Baba visited the West again in 1952, 1956, and 1958. Australia was also visited during the last two tours. After this, he did not travel outside of India, and he allowed Westerners to visit him in India only on rare occasions. One of these rare occasions was the Great East-West Gathering of November 1962. At his invitation, thousands of his devotees from all over the world converged on Pune. For almost a week, Meher Baba gave unstintingly of himself. The activities were as varied as the assemblage: brief discourses, group meetings, personal interviews, songs and prayers in praise of God, an open day of public darshan attended by multitudes surging from the city to pay homage to the Master and receive his blessings. The world's literature contains many references to the need for transfusions between East and West. Here was a rich confluence in which mutual respect, affection, and unity in praise of the beloved avatar bridged vast differences in culture and tradition. Persistent throughout decades of Meher Baba's avataric activities was his seeking out and contacting God-intoxicated souls, or musts, pronounced musts. Through Dr. William Donkin's book, The Wayfarers, Meher Baba has described most clearly the states of masti, divine intoxication. The musts are those who have lost contact with the external world through intense absorption in their love of God, rather than through breakdown and insanity. Especially in the 1940s, Meher Baba contacted hundreds of these God-intoxicated souls throughout the subcontinent of India, often tending personally to their daily needs, giving each what only he knew they needed in their journey to God. There is an asterisk for Donkins. William Donkins, The Wayfarers, Ahmednagar, India, Meher Publications, 1948. Second edition, San Francisco Sufism Reoriented, 1969. What a book. Meher Baba also personally served the poor, the mentally ill, and physically handicapped, and showed a special concern for those stricken by leprosy. With infinite care and love, he washed their feet, bowed his forehead to the often twisted stumps on which they hobbled, and sent them on their way with small gifts and renewed hope. They are like beautiful birds in ugly cages, he conveyed on one such occasion. Of all the tasks I have to perform, this touches me most deeply. While traveling widely and contacting many thousands of people, Meher Baba continued to emphasize that he had not come to teach or lay down new precepts. He stressed repeatedly that the truth had been revealed by the great ones of the past, and that the present task for humanity is to realize the truth embodied in their teachings. Meher Baba's avataric work is therefore the awakening of humanity to that realization through his age-old message of love. His life is a gauge against which man can measure what he is and what he may become. In essence, however, one does not know how Meher Baba achieved and continues to elicit unexpected responses from those drawn to him. All that the individual senses is a powerful force sweeping through the snarls of life, energizing and freeing the inner being in a manner that is intuitively trusted. One of the great wonders of contact with Meher Baba is acceptance. Charles Purdom, in his book the God-man, notes that he invites people to look at themselves, to accept their egoistic selves, not as good or bad, clever or stupid, successful or unsuccessful, but as illusions of their true selves, and to cease to identify themselves with the illusion. That's from the book, and the book has a reference. Phoebe Purdom, The Godman. It's a London publisher, Allen and Unwin, 1964, second edition, Crescent Beach, South Carolina, Sharia Press, 1971. So, yeah. Sure. Okay. The history of man's search for his soul has produced few works that lay out in minute detail the techniques for the soul's discovery. Meher Baba's Discourses are a major contribution to that small body of literature. In this work, given to his close disciples during the 1930s and early 1940s, he describes the means for incorporating daily life into one's spiritual ongoing. He also outlines the structure of creation and clarifies the relationship of the aspirant to the avatar and the master. In his later classic work, God Speaks, Meher Baba describes in detail the states of God, his will to know his divinity consciously, and the consequent role of creation. The discourses, on the other hand, are practical guides to daily life for those slowly finding their way back to oneness after having developed consciousness through the deeps of evolution. The discourses not only provide descriptions of the spiritual path and its disciplines, but also shed powerful light on the goal for the wayfarer who aspires to attain it. The reader will discover that they in no way provide a cut and dried formula for spiritual development. Rather, they are a reminder of the continuous need for love of God and surrender to Him. Love for God is the guiding force along the path, and it is love for and surrender to God that eventually attains the goal by the grace of a perfect master. Such a master is the knowing guide who has already traversed the path and experienced the truth, and who provides the infinite patience, the security, and the steady pace that can lead the disciple to the goal. As described in detail in the discourse, The Avatar, it is the periodic manifestation of God as the Avatar, the God-man, the Messiah, the Buddha, the Christ, the Rasul, that brings about the spiritual rebirth of humanity. For it is the Avatar who releases a spiritual dispensation that assumes unlimited dimensions. Independent of the grace of the perfect master, the grace of the Avatar flows to all alike at every step toward the truth, provided there is intense love and longing for God. It is not just during the period of his physical presence that the guidance and the grace of the Avatar are available. He is not only for contemporary humanity during his advent, but for posterity as well. His grace and his guidance toward the truth are constantly accessible and available to one and all. In all instances, to attain the goal and make the final leap from the realms of duality to the abiding experience of the oneness of reality, it is necessary to have the grace of a living perfect master or of the Avatar, who is the eternal living perfect master. Meher Baba's silence, there's again this revealing discussion of the unique availability of the Avatar at all times is from one of Meher Baba's Mandli, close disciples. I think DES, the initials stand for D.E. Shaw, I think. Oh, no, Donnie Stevens, sorry. Meher Baba's silence of 44 years remained unbroken when he passed away on 31st January 1969. His last years were marked by great physical suffering due to two severe auto accidents. The first occurred near Prague, Oklahoma, while traveling across the United States in 1952. The second occurred in India, near Satara, in late 1956. In both accidents, Meher Baba sustained serious injuries that made walking, even standing, extremely painful and difficult thereafter. Such physical pain is an outward manifestation of the intense inner suffering the avatar takes on for the sake of humanity each time he comes in our midst. His final years were largely spent in close seclusion and in intense and exhausting preoccupation with his universal work. In mid 1968, Meher Baba announced that his work had been completed to his 100% satisfaction. The same period also witnessed the explosive growth in the numbers of those who looked to him for the key to meaning in life. At his passing, thousands came for a last glimpse and to pay homage to the well-loved form as it lay for 7 days in the tomb at Mehrabad before his interment there. More thousands from all over the world attended the April to June 1969 Darshan program in Pune, which he had arranged months before his passing, and they deeply felt his love and presence in their hearts. Today, Meher Baba's love spreads out in ever-widening circles, drawing people from all corners of the world, from all walks of life, and from all religions to search for truth under his loving guidance. Although hundreds of Meher Baba groups function throughout the world, in the West, he personally established two major centers, Meher Spiritual Center in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, USA, and Avatar's abode in Mumbai, Queensland, Australia. Each year, hundreds of seekers visit these centers and thousands more make pilgrimages to Avatar Meher Baba's tomb shrine, as well as the long-time residence of his later years at Mehrazad, also near Ahmednagar, India. So that's Don E. Stevens, who signs off on the introduction. Any thoughts? Any comments? What did you take away which you didn't realize in the last time you read? For me, I think this is a good introduction, not just to the discourses, it's a good introduction to Baba. So if somebody asks me now that I again went through this, if somebody asks me who's Baba, this is a good 3-4 pager that we could share. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
I would like to add here, Donnie Stephen, Murshida, Ivy Deuce, and one Noni, who was Ronno's mother. So Noni used to type the entire thing. So the entire discourses, this entire manuscript is typed by her.
Wow.
With and David and Murshida Ivy Deuce. It's the same team of Goddess Speaks.
God speaks.
Yes. So their name are not mentioned here, but just wanted to say this.
Yeah. Correct. And the introduction written by Don Stevens for the God Speaks is also similarly very beautiful, though it is much longer, about I think 20-25 pages.
Yes.
But that's also worth reading in kind of your isolate yourself and then read line by line. It's very beautiful. At least I loved it reading last 2 days. Yeah, Baba.
Very interesting. I remember the
Yeah.
God Speaks intro. It's very detailed.
Yeah.
And in fact, it
Very detailed.
exposes a little bit of the divine theme, little bit about Baba.
Yeah.
And then it's
Yes.
beautiful. And very careful choice of words.
Yeah. That's the
Yes.
beauty. Yeah, Baba.
Yes. Okay, so we finished. So we are in the first list. In the first list, we finished introduction to the 7th edition. Now we'll read the New Humanity. I know someone on this list loves New Humanity. Ashok, you there?
Yeah.
He can read. Right? You like
When
that
will the
chapter,
seven realities would be coming later, right? In some of them, that's also a
yes.
chapter
Yeah,
in a way.
maybe we can read that and then go to New Humanity. Yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
just move that. I just moved that ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Karthik, I'm there. Whatever you say.
Whatever you say, sir. Please read the 7
Okay,
realities. If
7
you're okay to read, yeah. If the
Yeah,
7
yeah.
realities, then followed by New Humanity.
Voice clear once.
Yeah.
Rockstar voice. Go ahead.
Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following seven realities. One, the only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. Two, the only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. Three, the only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all things body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. Four, the only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. Fifth, the only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is in the inner dweller, in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectation of reward. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. 6. The only real control is the discipline of senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. 7. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Okay. So, of course, we've read Seven Realities probably most often because we read it at least every third meeting. So, any thoughts or questions or reactions before we go to New Humanity?
Yeah, I think we can move because
Sure.
seven realities is something. Yeah.
Shokji,
Yes, the
you
new
can continue.
humanity. As in all great critical periods of human history, humanity is now going through the agonizing travail of spiritual rebirth. Great forces of destruction are afoot and seem to be dominant at the moment, but constructive and creative forces that will redeem humanity are also being released through several channels. Although the working of these forces of light is chiefly silent, they are eventually bound to bring about those transformations that will make the further spiritual advance of humanity safe and steady. It is all a part of the divine plan, which is to give to the hungry and weary world a fresh dispensation of eternal and only truth. The subtopic here is divine plan.
Yeah.
Going on to the next subtopic,
The
war.
beautiful part is the eternal and only truth. Only probably I'm saying in capitals, the truth is only one. And that truth is always eternal. That's a key word here, I think. Yeah.
Correct.
Thanks, Sanjay. The next subtopic, war, a symptom of graver causes. At present, the urgent problem facing humanity is to devise ways and means of eliminating competition, conflict, and rivalry in all the subtle and gross forms that they assume in the various spheres of life. Military wars are, of course, the most obvious sources of chaos and destruction. However, wars in themselves do not constitute the central problem for humanity, but are rather the external symptoms of something graver at their root. Wars and the suffering they bring cannot be completely avoided by mere propaganda against war if they are to disappear from human history. It will be necessary to tackle their root cause. Even when military wars are not being waged, individuals or group of individuals are constantly engaged in economic or some other subtle form of warfare. Military wars, with all the cruelty they involve, arise only when these underlying causes are aggravated. The cause of chaos that precipitates itself in wars is that most persons are in the grip of egoism and selfish considerations, and they express their egoism and self interest individually as well as collectively. This is the life of illusory values in which man is caught. To face the truth is to realize that life is one in and through its manifold manifestations. To have this understanding is to forget the limiting self in the realization of the unity of life. The subtopic is egoism and selfishness.
Yeah, if you are able to see the subtitle, I think maybe starting with the subtitle is a good idea. And in
Yes, yes,
fact, you
I
should.
missed
Yeah,
my,
yeah.
my
No, I'm just. No, no, actually, I missed it. Maybe we should read it in Trello and then come here so that it sets some expectation about what to get in this chapter
yes, yes.
before we
No,
start the chapter. Next
it's
time
also
we'll.
it's also the page division and maybe anyway, it's my
Yeah, yeah.
bad.
Sometimes that's the problem. So Trello is a good place to read it and then come here.
Okay, was unnecessary and unreasonable. With the dawn of true understanding, the problem of wars would immediately disappear. Wars have to be so clearly seen as both unnecessary and unreasonable that the immediate problem would not be how to stop wars, but to wage them spiritually against the attitude of mind responsible for such a cruel and painful state of things. In the light of the truth of unity of all life, cooperative and harmonious action becomes natural and inevitable. Hence, the chief task before those who are deeply concerned with the rebuilding of humanity is to do their utmost to dispel the spiritual ignorance that envelops humanity. Self must be eliminated in all spheres of life. Wars do not arise merely to secure material adjustment. They are often the product of uncritical identification with narrow interests, which through association come to be included in that part of the world regarded as mine. Material adjustment is only part of the wider problem of establishing spiritual adjustment. Spiritual adjustment requires the elimination of self, not only from the material aspects of life, but also from those spheres that affect the intellectual, emotional, and cultural life of man.
I can pause you there. We are exposed to the first of a special word that Baba uses in this book, and generally as well. Even in beams, we see adjustment. In many places, we see adjustment. So please mark this out in your mind because you'll see more and more meanings that will emerge in your head about what Baba could be conveying through this word, right? So it's a very subtle, simple yet profound concept that he's bringing. So uh, if all the world is indeed one, if all the souls are one, if all of creation is basically illusion and all of that, all it needs for us to make progress is that adjustment, or I would say alignment and adjustment with with everything else. Like Baba says, the two things, the two ingredients for spiritual progress is one, inner poise, and second, adjustment to the material universe. right? Adjustment to the environment that you live in, which is nothing but the material universe in our gross bodies. So both of those together is what makes up your spiritual journey. So if so, that's how important this word is. And any other thoughts and comments are also welcome.
Yeah, yeah. All our interactions in life are some kind of adjustments, uh, in office, with our spouses, with our kids. Whatever you transact with people, there is some element of adjustment is always there. The choice of the other, and then you modify your expectations, and then come to a conclusion which is happy for both of you. So
Absolutely.
everything we
So
do is an adjustment. Actually, the negotiation at a shop is also an adjustment. In
interesting.
office, we set expectations from seniors as well as juniors and colleagues, and there is an element of adjustment. And our openness to adjust is something which is to be thought upon, because you are setting your life through as God wants you to. You cannot have a firm view on anything and just keep on. You have to take into consideration the other's viewpoint, and then to try to what is the right thing to do, and detach yourself from the results. That only can ensure that you are able to really adjust, not only
Beautiful.
compromise but adjust. There is a compromise also, which you settle for it. Okay, let it be like this, but you are not at ease or at with your full heart. But the adjustment, I think, has an element that you are flowing with it, with love and complete surrenderance or agreement. So I
Beautiful.
see it from that perspective. Yeah. Yeah, Baba.
Very, very beautiful. Very, very
Yeah.
beautiful. The
Yeah.
fact
Yeah.
that adjustment is there in
Yeah.
every step of our lives. You gave
Yes. Yeah.
examples, it is there. And the adjustment recognizes the, you know, again, to use a corporate term, there's goal and there's outcome, right? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
adjustment is a recognition that goal will not always be equal to outcome, and a willing acknowledgement with a smile and embrace of that outcome is what we need to do, which is
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
only possible through a process of detachment, right?
Yeah.
So
Being happy
beautiful.
in the mercy, being happy in the mercy of God,
Correct,
ultimately. That's what
correct,
Baba expects us to do. Do
correct.
your best and then leave it to me. So everything we do in our life, try to do best in our office, in at home, or constructing something, writing something. We do our best and leave it. So that's the final adjustment that we need to do with ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, Baba.
For most of us, it's just adjustment, but those of us who are married, obviously, it's total surrender. That's a
Compromise.
total
Compromise
surrender.
and surrender.
I'm joking.
That's a good
Jai
one.
Baba. Jai
Clark.
Baba.
But I just want to add, I think some good points came up from this discussion, and detach from results, because do your best and leave the rest to me, meaning means Meher Baba. And so detach from results, that is the same thing also, you know, conveyed by the Bhagavad Gita. So, I mean, and on a, at the human level, diplomacy or, and maybe love is the antidote of war, pure love. So, I mean, and humanity needs this. There's so much of chaos and destruction with this ongoing wars and etc. So I think, and I would like to read that spiritual adjustment line which you highlighted again. If you,
Sure, sure.
I think
Please
it's
go ahead.
very profound. So I'll just read it slowly. Spiritual adjustment requires the elimination of self, not only from the material aspects of life, but also from those spheres that affect the intellectual, emotional, and cultural life of man. Moving on, material adjustment requires.
Yeah, Siva.
Sorry, I had something. I
Oh
thoughts
yes,
to add. So we
Please.
just read about the seven realities, and the very first statement was about the real existence, and it's like only God is real, and everything is God, something like that. Um, so Baba expects us to understand at the beginning, and later when we interconnect all these aspects, and also the this particular statement really cuts down into um the instruction, I would say, or the way it feels to me, like giving up all that we feel is essential for our existence, and giving up, and also connecting another statement of Baba. It's like serving others and making others happy at the cost of ourselves. It is like he's constantly reminding or instructing us to um, give up what we think is us, thereby cutting down or removing that duality from our conditioning, and actually taking helping us take a step toward that oneness that is the real existence. So, I mean, though it all is theoretically easy, he is clearly mentioning about the mental, emotional, as well as the basic practices like accumulating wealth for ourselves, and culture like uh, serving serving ourselves, and moving away from all these practices or the conditions which have definitely helped until the evolution reached the human form, right? That level of consciousness. And after that, it is like serving others completely, which will be the only way to realize God, which is the limitless one, universal consciousness. So somehow this is interconnecting or cutting across all these various places where Baba has highlighted that spiritual truth, and wants us to follow, and in a way means that that is the real awakening he is trying to do.
Well said. Well summarized. By the way, who's the meeting guest who's on mute? There's somebody whose name is not published. There's somebody who's a MG. So he's
That
the.
meeting guest is me. Okay.
Oh, you're the mystery guest, huh?
I
You're there
I
in
got
two places.
I
Duality.
got my name won't appear, so that the MG is me.
No, but
I
then Ashok
When
Bansari
you log
is
in, you
not
can
talking.
type.
ah okay, it's my
Are you connected in two devices?
no one. I'm on MacBook.
No, I think there's somebody else.
Oh, I don't. I would know. I would know.
Remember, you had this problem a
Yes,
while
yes,
back.
I thought it is me because anyway. So we have somebody. We have probably Baba as the
Baba,
meeting guest. I
unless
just wanted to add, Karthik, if I may, that the fifth part of my wish uh, says that with the understanding that Baba is in everyone, try to help and serve others. Okay, so just an
Absolutely.
extension or correlation of what Shiva said,
Shiva said, yes, absolutely.
and also to bring in what Dr. Kama always says, that this is all a movie, an illusion, and we have to separate the illusion or the duality from the reality. I think that's the key aspect which Baba is trying to convey in various places and various aspects.
Correct, Ashok ji. Number 5 needs a huge amount of adjustment. We are talking about adjustment.
Yes, yes,
If you
Yes.
real
adjustment.
in the real sense, if you want to do it, help
That
and serve others. But because if you help others, they will expect you will expect something from them.
Or
And
you will boost their
yeah,
ego and so
yeah,
on.
their soul's ego, so that all that adjustment would be there. Yeah,
well said.
we can continue. I
Well,
said, yeah.
it's a selfless help. I mean, without any return or whatever.
So
But
we will get to that in discourses itself, right? So Baba defines this journey very beautifully. The how you start with the self and then become selfless, and then you go to the end point, which is the state we need to get to, which is see the selfness in all. So selfishness,
Hmm.
selflessness, go to selfness in all, right? That's the
Hmm.
journey, and we'll get this. There's a discourse on that. Yeah.
yeah,
Great.
thanks for pointing. Uh, Material adjustment requires spiritual understanding. To understand the problem of humanity as merely a problem of bread is to reduce humanity to the level of animality. But even when man sets himself the limited task of securing purely material adjustment, he can only succeed in this attempt if he has spiritual understanding. Economic adjustment is impossible unless people realize that there can be no planned and cooperative action in economic matters until self interest gives way to self giving love. Otherwise, with the best of equipment and efficiency in the material spheres, humanity cannot avoid conflict and insufficiency. Rightful place of science. The new humanity that emerges from the travail of the present struggle and suffering will not ignore science or its practical attainments. It is a mistake to look upon science as anti spiritual. Science is a help or hindrance to spirituality according to the use to which it is put. Just as true art expresses spirituality, science, when properly handled, can be the expression and fulfillment of the spirit. Scientific truths concerning the physical body and its life in the gross world can become mediums for the soul to know itself. But to serve this purpose, they must be properly fitted into larger spiritual understanding. This includes a steady perception of truth and lasting values. In the absence of such spiritual understanding, scientific truths and attainments are liable to be used for mutual destruction and for life that will tend to strengthen the chains that bind spirit. All sided progress of humanity can be assured only if science and religion proceed hand in hand. Can you just take it
So
up?
if I can, yeah, if I can pause you there, it brings us to the next important word that we will discover and reuse many times in this book is values, right? So if you're describing anything to, I mean, spirituality to anybody, so it's only the discovery of true and lasting values. So once you go to the true value of something, that means that you become spiritual. So again, each of these points that we are talking here are like even the points that Shiva made, Sanjay made, Ashok made, are worthy of meditations, right? So you can meditate on each of the aspects of my wish, the seven realities, and it's so deep that it's not. Uh, uh, so Ashok, did you do something now? It just got disconnected. That MG.
No, I didn't do anything.
So it was another person for sure,
Oh,
who was a mystery person who just left. Anyway, so I think it's a these are things that you will draw so much of insight and information from when you dwell on it personally, as Sanjay put it, in seclusion in your own ways, right? Yeah.
Yeah, other thing which comes out of these two paragraphs is unless we have spiritual understanding, there will always be self-interest, and however wealthy the world can become, there'll always be a sense of insufficiency. So we generally see the economies that are like 5 times the Indian economy, 10 times the India, like US or China or whatever. There is still a sense of insufficiency per capita, right? In the physical terms, if you say. So the spiritual understanding of things is so very important. Unless that comes, the insufficiency will never go. And insufficiency is the product of self-interest ultimately. Everybody wants more and more and more. There is never enough, you know. So
Correct.
that's the key message is coming out. Yeah.
The second key message that probably you all picked up already is the role of science. And I know we discussed this briefly last time as well. But yeah, role of science, instead of being um, a master that puts mysticism and other experiences as something superior and science as something inferior, Baba puts science in the place it deserves. That is, he says that science has a role even in spirituality, which is very beautiful compared to, I mean, some masters, some people who say, oh, science is nothing, or science is just subservient to other things, and so on. Science is an important part of human enterprise, of the aspects of human ingenuity, and but it has its place. It has its place, as in it has its limitations, and that balance and that sensitivity is beautifully defined by Baba here and many other places.
Just to add to what Sanjay said, a thought comes is that it's infinite greed. I mean, that which is
Yeah.
one of the causes of this all.
So again, to loop you back to another way of looking at it is focus on the wrong value, right? So focus on the wrong value makes you look at greed, and the continuous greed is infinite greed, which leads to insufficiency, which leads to material adjustment being sought through wars, right? So it's a whole
Yeah.
cycle. It's beautiful.
It's good
Wrongful
correlation.
use of science. Yeah,
Wrongful.
leads
Yeah,
to
perfect.
wrongful use of science.
Perfect. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Need for spiritual experience.
Yes, need for spiritual experience. The coming civilization of the new humanity shall be ensouled not by dry intellectual doctrines, but by living spiritual experience. Spiritual experience has a hold on the deeper truths that are inaccessible to mere intellect. It cannot be born of unaided intellect. Spiritual truth can often be stated and expressed through the intellect, and the intellect surely is of some help for the communication of spiritual experience. But by itself, the intellect is insufficient to enable man to have spiritual experience or to communicate it to others. If two persons have had headaches, they can cooperatively examine the experience of headaches and make it explicit to themselves through the work of the intellect. If, if a person has never experienced a headache, no amount of intellectual explanation will suffice for making him understand what a headache is. Intellectual explanation can never be a substitute for spiritual experience. It can at best prepare the ground for it. Spiritual experience involves more than can be grasped by mere intellect. This is often emphasized by calling it a mystical experience. Mysticism is often regarded as something anti intellectual, obscure, and confused, or impractical and unconnected with experience. In fact, true mysticism is none of these. There is nothing irrational in true mysticism when it is, as it should be, a vision of reality. This subtopic is nature and place of spiritual experience. It is a form of perception that is absolutely unclouded and is so practical that it can be lived every moment of life and expressed in everyday duties. Its connection with experience is so deep that, in one sense, it is the final understanding of all experience. When spiritual experience is described as mystical, one should not assume that it is something supernatural or entirely beyond the grasp of human consciousness. All that is meant is that it is not accessible to the limited human intellect until the intellectual transcends its limits and is illumined by direct realization of the infinite. Jesus Christ pointed out the way to spiritual experience when he said, leave all and follow me. This means that man must leave limitations and establish himself in the infinite life of God. A real spiritual experience involves not only realization of the nature of the soul while traversing the higher planes of consciousness, but also a right attitude toward worldly duties. If it loses its connection with the different phases of life, what we have is a neurotic reaction that is far from being a spiritual experience?
Yeah, Ashokji, if you're tired, I can read for me.
Yeah. Please continue. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I think you
tired.
have been reading for more than half an hour. Yeah.
Yes.
Jai Baba.
Sorry.
Please,
Jai
Thanks.
Baba.
Thanks.
please,
Thanks.
please,
Yeah,
Sanjay,
yeah.
please, by
Yeah.
all.
Jai Baba. Spiritual experience not found in scape. The spiritual experience that is to enliven and energize the new humanity cannot be a reaction to the stern and uncompromising demands made by the realities of life. Those without the capacity for adjustment to the flow of life have a tendency to recoil from the realities of life and to seek shelter and protection in a self created fortress of illusions. Such a reaction is an attempt to perpetuate one's separate existence by protecting it from the demands made by life. It can only give a pseudo solution to the problems of life by providing a false sense of security and self completeness. It is not even an advance towards the real and lasting solution. On the contrary, it is a sidetrack from the true spiritual path. Man will be dislodged again and again from these illusory shelters by fresh and irresistible waves of life, and will invite upon himself fresh forms of suffering by seeking to protect his separative existence through escape. New humanity will not be attached to external forms. Just as a person may seek to hold on to his separative experience through escape, he may also seek to hold on to it through uncritical identification with forms, ceremonies, and rituals, or with traditions and conventions. Forms, ceremonies, and rituals, traditions, and conventions are in most cases fetters to the release of infinite life. If they are
If they
if they
were,
were pliant mediums for the expression of unlimited life, they would be an asset rather than a handicap for securing the fulfillment of divine life on earth. But they mostly have a tendency to gather prestige and claims in their own right, independently of the life they might express. When this happens, any attachment to them must eventually lead to a drastic curtailment and restrictions of life. So, two points made here. One was the escape point, that we leave everything and run away from life, our duties, and avoid facing the harsh realities of life, and not be ready to adjust to this, the realities of life. Let me bring that word again. And the next point made here is uh, rites and ceremonies and rituals, that we disengage ourselves and focus only on doing activities, and more focused on doing those activities, like we have is these rituals which run for hours together, but not focusing on the essence of godhood or love for him. Two forms. Any other comments? Yeah, yeah, Baba. So the next paragraph I would read: the
Sanjay,
new humanity.
yeah,
Anything?
Shiva was saying something. Yeah.
so I was, some time ago, I was pondering upon the meaning of duties. It's like whatever we are involved naturally through the way of life, it's like we can call them as duties. Say a police person is performing his duties when he is employed as a police, and an IT software professional performing his duties as a software engineer, and a driver, conductor, and everything in that sense.
whatever we are, I mean, mostly I am limitedly perceiving this from the point of employment and the business and probably what we are doing. But going beyond that, it's like naturally what is, I mean, where we are placed by him in our lives, and whatever we are required to do, that becomes our duties. But beyond that, even though I'm just narrating this, like um, I've always found this a very tricky part as to what duty is.
Good question. So, any other thoughts on what duty is?
Karthik, if I may add at this point, I think points number 1 and 2 of our My Wish, or what comes to my mind. So, number 1 is do not shirk your responsibilities. Number 2 is that attend faithfully to your worldly duties, but keep always at the back of your mind that all this is Baba's. I think that might be relevant to what Shiva is.
Yeah.
No, no, no. It is
Yeah.
absolutely
Shiva,
relevant.
yeah, that
What is the
his
definition? Yeah.
point is what is the duty. So I think here again the word of adjustment would come. As individuals, I have a duty to my profession. I have a duty as being a son. I have a duty of being a father or of a spouse or a friend. So here also, I do my best. Whatever is given to me in my office, I do my best as relationships with my environment or nature or whatever hobbies that I have. So I have to bring out a real adjustment into them actually. So that's my duty. Do your best and whatever you are doing and leave it uh, for him to, uh, as we are just said, so that's my duty actually. I mean, how do I other way define my duties actually?
Definitely, this is the closest I
Yeah,
think I have had
yeah.
an answer to this question.
No,
It's
so,
like
so Shiva, we have personal, professional duties. If I mean, if you're asking in a very
social as well.
social as well, and
Socially,
Yeah.
I would also come to the point 4 in this My Wish,
uh-huh.
and I think that is the answer to a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
our. Be resigned to every situation and think honestly and sincerely. Baba has placed me in this situation, and with that as the you know
Yeah, Ashokji, that is correct. But to what extent you go and play out those roles? That's what the sometimes you are so focused on your profession that you leave everything else. Actually, I just people are working for 13, 14, 15 hours a day,
yeah, and that
uh,
time we are not.
putting their best efforts in the work that have been given, neglecting their families or their own health or their as parents or kids of their own parents. So that adjustment part has to come, and somehow you need to manage that. Actually, that's very tricky. I understand, but
yes,
this is what we face on a day-to-day basis.
yes,
Sometimes
So
I find it
yeah,
a little bit illusory when we make the choices. It's like
yeah.
I mean, I am working as an IT engineer, and I worked as a lecturer as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what if I had continued there? I mean, for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
switching from one company to another company, or a role, or taking up a different work or different responsibility in the same job, all these become choices, a matter of choices. And when we align everything, I think all these are rooting from the existence point, like, okay, you are not separate, just give up the thought of separateness and surrender to the will of Baba
Mm-hmm.
and God. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
what theoretically I'm saying, but it becomes a little bit a matter of choice. And when it comes to choices, it's like, okay, are we aligning to Baba's will, or are we making that choice from the separate self? Because duty is like aligned to what we are, where we are, and how we are entangled in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And all these are interrelated. It's beautiful how life is.
I think in the
Yeah, yeah.
professional in the professional career, it's very difficult sometimes because you work with like
Mhm.
thousands of people, and they have their own desires, and you're surrounded with so many people. Everyone are just running right for maybe for the
Absolutely.
Correct, correct.
promotion or
So,
salary,
yeah, yeah.
and when the thousand people are running, then it forces you to run with them, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
you can't do anything. That is one of the thing behind that. So might be, yeah, you have to do the duty, but the surrounding made you some change into you.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
ultimately, your own sanskaras bring you there. Actually, you
yeah,
make your
yeah.
best adjustment and believe that wherever you have been placed is the what Baba wants. The point number 4, as Ashokji was saying. Actually, do your best and then just be happy about it.
And
Yeah,
another reminder, recently I
it's very
got from
puzzling.
another Baba
Yeah.
member is like,
Go ahead. Shiva. Finish what you're saying, Shiva. Mahu has her hand up, so she
oh,
can go
okay,
after you.
okay, sure.
After you. Finish what you're saying.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I just lost that thought. Please go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Mahu.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to add to what was discussed. Um, what is life? Okay, so let's go back to basics a little bit. What is life? Life is a journey of consciousness. Baba explained that. Okay, and that he explains it very well. That's the main theme in God Speaks. Um, and the theme of creation. So, as our consciousness grows more and more, particularly when we are human, um, some of the stuff that is discussed now it automatically happens. I think here Baba is trying, like sometimes this discourses is not really targeted to us directly. This is for the new humanity, or perhaps people who come to him and start asking questions. What is this? What is that? What about our intellect? What about our material life? What about this? What about, so he's just taking their hand and taking them there. Okay, so this is the adjustment. This is material adjustment. Intellect, if you take it as a means of communication for a spiritual understanding, it's what it's worth for, and on and on and on. But I think as when you have a master, when we have a master, and of course we have a master, our life is not our own. Okay, so our life is in Baba's hands, and he takes our sanskaras and shapes it and mold it and shapes it and mold it. And sometimes there are many things, many unpredictable things happens. You wake up in the morning, something suddenly happens. Oh, where did this come from? So those are the adjustment. What is the adjustment? Adjustment to the God's will. Seek what he wants and follow that. That's the best adjustment I think that we can do. Find out what Baba wants. And of course we can use the Baba's wish. That's the best. Just keep on having, I mean, I do. I wake up in the morning and I ask Baba that how is the day supposed to be? Baba, I'm listening, and I want to know how do you want me to live the day, and just give me a signal. And so I follow, and I follow, and I follow, and he does that. It's amazing. So that's how I see it.
Beautiful.
Selfish motives, yeah, selfish motives will stay with us all the way to sixth plane. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line. We think that we're attending to our duties. which we try to, but the ego mind is involved. So while we are attending to our duties, we're also protecting us. We're protecting our children, we're protecting our wife, husband, and so forth, you know. So it's a gradual, very, very gradual process, I think. That's all.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Beautifully said. I think the key thing is you are a step ahead if you do everything that you claimed. You're absolutely on the way, because if you're able to bring Baba into your life at that level on a daily, practical, proximate manner like you described, you're there. You're, I mean, then your values are aligned, your duties are taken care of, because he is the one managing that, and you need not worry about whether you're doing it right by him or not, right? So beautifully said. I think I took away that big thing from what you said.
Thanks so much, everyone. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
beautiful thing. Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Okay, great. Anybody wants to read the last two pages, or Sanjay ji, you're okay to continue, or I can just jump in and finish it if you want.
Karthik, I would like to.
Please, New Humanity, start from here. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
The new humanity will be freed from a life of limitations, allowing unhampered scope for the creative life of the spirit, and it will break the attachment to external forms and learn to subordinate them to the claims of the spirit. The limited life of illusions and the false values will then be replaced by unlimited life in the truth. The limitations through which the separative self lives will wither away at the touch of true understanding. Just as a person, okay, the subtitle here is Identification with Narrow Group is a form of limited self. Just as a person may seek to hold on to his separative existence through escape or identification with external forms, he may seek to hold on to it through identification with some narrow class, creed, sect, or religion, or with the divisions based upon sex. Here, the individual may seem to have lost his separative existence through identification with a larger whole, but in fact, he is often expressing his separative existence through such an identification, which enables him to delight in his feeling of being separate from others who belong to another class, nationality, creed, sect, religion, or sex. So the next subtitle is Limited Self Lives Through Opposites. Separative existence derives its being and strength from identifying itself with one of the opposites and contrasting itself with the others. An individual may seek to protect his separate existence through identification with one ideology rather than the other, or with his conception of good as contrasted with his idea of evil. What results from identification with narrow groups or limited ideals is not a real merging of the separative self, but only a semblance of it. A real merging of the limited self in the ocean of universal life involves complete surrender of separative existence in all its forms. Next subtitle, Hope for the Future. The large mass of humanity is caught up in the clutches of separative and assertive tendencies. For one who is overpowered by the spectacle of these fetters of humanity, there is bound to be nothing but unrelieved despair about its future. One must look deeper into the realities of the day if one is to get a correct perspective on the present distress of humanity. The real possibilities of the new humanity are hidden to those who look only at the surface of the world situation, but they exist and only need the spark of spiritual understanding to come into full play and effect. The forces of lust, hate, and greed produce incalculable suffering and chaos. However, the one redeeming feature about human nature is that even in the midst of disruptive forces, there invariably exists some form of love. That was very sense. I mean, even though we at the outset we call it as lust, hate, or greed, there is some form of love present in all of them.
In fact, for that, we have to go to the definition of love. Love is, again, a gradation, right? So there's nothing like binary states in Baba's definition
Yeah.
of things, right? So, yeah.
Gravity is love.
Gravity is also
Yeah.
love. Yes, yes.
Karma is love.
Less hateness is love. Zero hateness, rather, is love.
Oh. The next subtitle, Love Must Be Free from Limitations. Even wars require cooperative functioning, but the scope of this cooperative functioning is artificially restricted by identification with a limited group or ideal. Wars often are carried on by a form of love, though it is a love that has not been understood properly. In order that love should come into its own, it must be untrammeled and unlimited. Love does exist in all phases of human life, but it is latent and is limited and poisoned by personal ambition, racial pride, narrow loyalties and rivalries, and attachment to sex, nationality, sect, caste, and or religion. If there is to be a resurrection of humanity, the heart of man will have to be unlocked so that a new love is born into it, a love that knows no corruption and is entirely free from individual or collective greed. The next subtitle, Love Essentially Self Communicative. The new humanity will come into existence through a release of love in measureless abundance, and this release of love can come through the spiritual awakening brought about by perfect masters. Love cannot be born of mere determination. Through the exercise of will, one can at best be dutiful. Through struggle and effort, one may succeed in assuring that one's external action is in conformity with one's concept of what is right. But such action is spiritually barren because it lacks the inward beauty of spontaneous love. Love has to spring spontaneously from within. It is in no way amenable to any form of inner or outer force. Love and coercion can never go together, but while love cannot be forced upon anyone, it can be awakened through love itself. Love is essentially self communicative. Those who do not have it catch it from those who have it. Those who receive love from others cannot be its recipients without giving a response that in itself is the nature of love. True love is unconquerable and irresistible. It goes on gathering power and spreading itself until eventually it transforms everyone it touches. Humanity will attain a new mode of being and life through the free and unhampered interplay of pure love from heart to heart. The next subtitle is Redemption of Humanity Through Divine Love. When it is recognized that there are no claims greater than the claims of universal divine life, which without exception includes everyone and everything, love will not only establish peace, harmony, and happiness in social, national, and international spheres, but it will shine in its own purity and beauty. Divine love is unassailable to the onslaughts of duality and is an expression of divinity itself. It is through divine love that the new humanity will tune into the divine plan. Divine love will not only introduce imperishable sweetness and infinite bliss into personal life, but it will also make possible an era of new humanity. Through divine love, the new humanity will learn the art of cooperative and harmonious life. It will free itself from the tyranny of dead forms and release the creative life of spiritual wisdom. It will shed all illusions and get established in the truth. It will enjoy peace and abiding happiness. It will be initiated in the life of eternity.
Yeah, I think that brings us to the close of this chapter. Um, Beautiful chapter. And I think we are also out of time. I have a hard close as well. I have to stop. So we will pick up on this from the next Sunday and continue on the list that's here, which is next one will be the 12 ways of realizing me. And then we take up Life of the Spirit, which we read once, but we'll read it again along with violence and non-violence. So with that, I'm happy to stop recording, and you guys are welcome to stay on for some time, but I will, have to leave. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Yeah.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba. Jai